Facts 92.3 Nigeria Info. Sam Chinedu here. These are interesting times for my wonderful country, Nigeria, because, well, thanks to a social media post by Trump, the world is talking, and the focus is Nigeria. The United States designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern over the weekend. The president of the United States said he had asked the U.S. Defense Department to prepare for possible military action in Nigeria if the government continues to allow the killing of Christians. In a post on his social media handle, President Trump also threatens to cut off all U.S. aid to Nigeria and wipe out the terrorists behind the killings. But our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu disagrees. He says there's no mass slaughter of Christians in Nigeria. In a statement over the weekend, President Tinubu insists that painting Nigeria as a religiously intolerant country is simply not true. He says his administration keeps working with Christians and Muslim leaders and is tackling insecurity everywhere, regardless of faith. So, lots of questions come to mind, but hopefully objective questions. And that would be, what does Trump's threat mean for Nigeria's sovereignty? What kind of intervention is permissible by international law if he claims it is looking to defend the rights of Christians? And could there be implications, particularly of an economic concern of the supposed big brother role America is attempting to play? Hopefully we get answers to these questions and more. But my guest is Chief Festus Oguche. He is a legal practitioner, an analyst, an expert in international relations and diplomacy. And he joins me live in the studio. Good evening, Chief. Thank you for making the time.
Good evening, Sam. Thanks for inviting me.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
So, how do I address you now? Because you're a doctor, and I don't know which of the titles is higher. Is it chief or doctor? If we were to pick only one, I say, Chief Oguche, what do we call you moving forward? And we only want one.
It should be chief, because that's a very high honor, and it's traditional. It's attached to my nature, my system. I happen to be a traditional chief of Igala land.
Amazing.
In Kogi State. So I cherish that. I give that better premium than one that is attached to academic qualifications. I have a PhD now in law, and that makes me a doctor also. So it would be very, how do I put it, awkward, for instance, to merge the two. But we have a law for titles here.
Chief Doctor.
But if you call me chief, I think that suffices.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So there's a lot to unpack. And I have to say, even though we've not started the conversation, I don't think 1 hour will do justice to this conversation. Before we get into the main concern, which is sovereignty, right? Let's look at the tag. What does it mean for a country to be of particular concern? I'm pretending I don't understand English, and I just want to even get what Trump is trying to say. When a country is tagged that way, what does it mean?
I don't think it has become a language of general usage. I believe it's the coinage of the Americans to designate certain countries that should be looked into in particular areas. For instance, in areas like human rights violations, humanitarian law violations, and countries that are belligerent and all that. But to give it that tag also means that it has gone through the administrative procedure of a particular country, which is the United States. We don't have that kind of designation here. That's not part of our vocabulary.
Yeah.
So the Americans would be in a better position to define what they really mean. But then from the literal meaning of what it is, it means that maybe this country has particular issues in a very particular area, very special area that needs global attention or the attention of the United States. For instance, where you have a large number of fraudsters, internet fraudsters, it becomes a matter of particular concern that country should be looked into and designated as one with particular interests or concerns for fraudulent activities using the internet.
Well, the context of usage...
That's what I think anyway. I think Trump has to give it a definition, and maybe you expect a dictionary definition of that word from Oxford learners.
Possibly.
If it's possible.
But the context of usage will obviously tell you that there have been violation of something.
Yes, that's what it means.
All right. still before the sovereignty, Trump said the second threat that went with his post was that he will stop all aid to Nigeria. Apparently, that was supposed to pack a punch. And I'd like to know, how important are foreign aids to Nigeria's survival?
It's very, very important. The United States has been a very long-standing partner, economically speaking, to Nigeria. They have a lot of investments in every area of the economic endeavor that Nigeria is known for. In the oil sector, in the gas sector, in the educational sector, they've been partners. We've had very cordial relationships over a long period of time, starting from the independence era till this moment. And the United States has been very supportive. We've not had much of diplomatic rows with the country anyway, apart from little skirmishes here and there that do happen between sovereign entities, sovereign states here, maybe every here and now. And there are lots of Nigerians in the United States. They make up the bulk of the population in most of the professional area, in medicine, in law, and they've been advancing the cause of the interests of the United States for a very long period of time. America was very supportive of Nigeria during the Civil War era, and it helped immensely in advancing the cause for the restoration of democracy during the long years of military rule. So I don't think it's very healthy that we're having this row again with the United States, and it's simply because probably we've gone out of our way to do things that are very unpalatable to the United States government.
All right, so let's get to the main focus. Under international law, what conditions exist for a foreign country to unilaterally launch military action or threaten to do that on another country without the consent of its government?
States are conceived in terms of equality on the international fora. That means that states are expected to be independent and autonomous. One of the doctrines of international law that sustains that concept, at least to some extent, subjects it to proper recognition by other state entities, is the fact that it is a sovereign entity. It's a sovereign in the terms that you cannot invade it, you cannot do anything that concerns it domestically as a state, except with the permission of that state, or except with the permission of the United Nations, or maybe you're doing it alongside with an agglomeration of other states. If not, ordinarily you cannot interfere in the internal affairs of a sovereign state. Right? The thing in terms of the core contextual meaning of sovereignty is even absolute. But then if you come down a little bit to its more germane interpretations, you see that it is not even absolute. There's a doctrine of non-interference in the affairs, when the domestic affairs of states, which is a recognizable principle, not just a principle, it is entrenched in the United Nations Charter as one of the basis for which a state can be said to be recognized. For instance, if you don't have that stretch of strength or power or enablement to have other states prohibited from interfering into you, then you've not met the core qualities of a state in international law. There's a Montevideo Convention on what constitutes a state of 1933, and these are clearly spelled out: the power to protect your citizens, the power to protect your border against external aggression, the power to protect your boundaries against internal insurrection. So if you're a state, of course, that sovereign status gives you all the empowerment and enablement to act in all areas that concern your internal mechanisms, to ensure that no other state interferes, or tries to encroach into areas that are preserved for you within the status of that sovereignty. So that's what it means.
Okay. While I completely agree with the concept of sovereignty, I do not think that it should be absolute.
It's not absolute. I told you it's not absolute. It's not. But if you conceive it in terms or with regards to its original meaning in customary international law, it is absolute. But it's recent developments in international law,
there are clauses,
has come in to say that, look, this absolutism can be broken. this wall can be shaken and broken down, pulled down in so many serious circumstances. In the course of our discussion, we begin to reel out those circumstances by which a state's sovereignty can be invaded by other states, or by members of the international community or by international organizations.
Okay.
Where that absolutism of the sovereignty can be dissolved in the mire of the controversy that the state is involved in, particularly like the one Nigeria is currently engaged in. It's something that should raise anybody's eyebrows. But you can now look at the areas, the drawbacks, or rather the exceptions to the rule of sovereignty.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Now, let's look at the condition of the citizens of that sovereign state calling out. Because we saw a video of a cleric in the north literally calling not just the United States, but the president. He said, Trump, come and help us. And of course, it trended on social media because things like that trend. And even just analyzing the opinions and the positions of Nigerians, just from as recently as my previous conversation, you could hear somewhere on the side of the US, somewhere saying, oh yes, there is indeed a genocide. This is necessary. So while we have sovereignty as a nation, when the citizens of that nation specifically call out to another nation or to the international community to come and help, while the authorities would deny, there's nothing like that, the people are saying it's not true. Did they finish us here? What do you make of that specific situation?
They are not calling out Trump. It was Trump that kick-started the process.
Yeah, he did.
His tweets. So people are just expressing their solidarity with him, so to speak, if you permit my word. They're not calling out Trump to come and do that. But you find situations like that could arise where a government within a state entity has found itself floating endlessly and aimlessly on the side of political illegitimacy. When the popularity of that government has sunk to the extent that people are wearied, people are wearied, people are tired of such governments, you see that kind of thing happening. It happens in most parts of the world where governments have failed. I am not saying the Nigerian government has failed, but Nigerians have gone through a whole lot that if you see that kind of outcry to foreign powers to come and take over, take us into slavery. Of course, you know that there's something wrong with the internal dimensions of governance. And this is why we've been here. I've been talking for years, making advocacy on how to entrench good quality leadership in our system. But we have a political class that act like predators. They never learn, right from the series of events that led to the collapse of the First Republic to that of the Second Republic till now. You still find them coming in from different directions, opportunists and people who are just there to destroy what has been built. It's a very worrisome development that we have gotten to this stage, but what do we do?
It is dangerous desperation for people to believe that anything but this government is better. It's the problem with suffering when you're in a position where you feel just give me anything but this.
Yes.
And some people are not thinking about the consequences of what
some of my to do some bit of Volt, how do we put it?
Vox Pop.
And we discovered that majority of Nigerians are even ready. Before now, Nigerians are ready to submit themselves to slavery. If a slave ship comes to stand that body now, I'm very sorry to put it that way, but that's the extent to which this desperation has taken Nigerians. Bad quality governance that has nothing to do with the interests and the will of the people. And you find that mostly in checkered electoral processes that are criminal, fraudulent, and where the people's will is subjugated, like what is happening in Tanzania. At the end of the day, she gets sworn in, and what do you expect to be her relationship with her constituents?
I don't want to play the gender card.
It has nothing to do with gender.
I don't want to play the gender card.
And the females are not even playing that card too. They are not looking at it from that
exactly.
perspective.
But I was watching an analysis of it, and The fact that it's a woman came up more times than it should have.
Yes.
But the shock on the analysts, it was, you know how you want to be politically correct, but you also don't want to ignore the elephant in the room.
Exactly.
You have to mention it.
You have to mention. You have to say.
You have to say it
one way or
without
the
being
other.
biased. But it's not. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
After the break, we talk. Stay with us. It's 92.3 Nigeria Info. Sam Chinedu here. Our country, Nigeria, has been labeled a country of particular concern by the United States, specifically its president. He asked the U.S. Defense Department to prepare for possible military action in Nigeria if the government continues to allow the killing of Christians. My guest is Chief Festus Oguche. He's a legal practitioner, an analyst, and of course, an expert in international law relations and diplomacy. You're welcome once again, Chief.
Thank you very much.
All right. So before the break, we talked about the concept of sovereignty, the idea that it's not absolute. There are certain clauses, and one of those clauses would be that the UN Security Council can approve military action to restore peace and stop atrocities. Right? Now, if the UN can do that, why can't the US do it?
Well, the US can do it. Nobody said the US cannot do it when the measures are appropriate and for justifiable reasons as well. And that is exactly what Trump wants to do, on the condition that Nigeria must do the needful. Not that he's coming to invade Nigeria the next minute, if you read his tweet very well. Well, the interventions can come in if a state has breached international law or has lost its responsibility to protect its citizens. If a state loses that responsibility to protect its citizens, other states can intervene to restore that responsibility. There are exceptions to the rule anyway. The rule is that that is the rule on sovereignty, is that it is not a shield for atrocities, for states to commit atrocities and impunities against its own citizens, because the right of citizens under international law is no longer bound within the state's the state power to exercise. It's now an international thing. That's why we have what we call international human rights law. So a state cannot, on the basis of its sovereignty, begin to act anyhow or begin to lose its point of responsibility to its people, or begin to dwell or delve into atrocities, into monumental indiscretions like impunities and what have you. The thing is that these interventions are well streamlined for certain purposes, and you cannot take it upon yourself to do it unilaterally. But I expected that Trump should seek the permission of the United Nations or the Security Council before he took that, before he made that pronouncement. But he did not. It's not out of place in international law, because he has the right. The state has the right to protect the citizens of another country who are going through series of human rights violations and humanitarian devastations. The country where you see pogrom, genocide, carnage, the kind of carnage you see in Benue and Plateau states, repeatedly, and you find that the government does little or nothing about it. It gives any state the impetus to intervene. But then it must have its own restrictions as well, because I expected that the proper thing, which international law expects, is that maybe if such intervention is to take place, it must be at the directive of the United Nations, or maybe a conglomeration of states coming together to invade.
Cannot be
because there are
unilateral.
certain interests that go beyond the humanitarian angle, which border on the economic.
Yeah, lots of people have said that.
Economic concerns.
That if Nigeria were not Nigeria with its resources, Trump might not be as interested. That's the position of some people. Now, I understand the need for the US to play this big brother role, which of course lots of people do not like. Unfortunately, many...
No, I don't know where you got that from. I told you we did some vox pop, and a lot of people like it.
Yeah, but from the perspective of it is not in the place of the US. Now...
All right, I see what you mean now.
If I did not know about sovereignty, right? If I had no idea that it does exist and it is binding, I very likely may have been in support of Trump's move. Now, while I agree that there is need for a solution, I'm not exactly behind this solution. But another thing, and this is the problem with precedents. Chief Oguche, I'm certain you remember ECOMOG.
Yes, I was coming to that.
Now, it was Allied forces in Africa,
led by Nigeria.
Exactly.
I went to restore
sanity
in Sierra Leone.
Liberia. I call ECOMOG.
Gambia.
Right? This is my nickname for ECOMOG. an extension of Nigeria's military.
Yes, it is.
That's what I call them.
It was, rather, yeah.
Now, even though that the architecture of it was continental, I saw ECOMOG as a Nigerian front. Now, we did intervene, peacekeeping missions, restoring what I would call sanity. And to some level, they were kind of successful. Now, did we violate the sovereignty of the countries that we got into?
No, it did not violate any of the sovereignty of the countries, because in the first place, look at the intervention in the Gambia by Buhari. It was to restore democratic governance, particularly to give power to the person who was said to have won the election.
Yeah.
We have similar problem going on internally. So before you talk about the mole in somebody else's eyes, you talk about your own. You're wearing it. So it is not a violation, because the thing is that the international community has a right to protect human rights, and it underscores the context of the existing international human rights legal order, that the manner you treat your citizens is no longer the concern of your domesticity. It's no longer something that you rein in within your own municipality. It must meet international standards.
Yeah.
If people are being killed in their droves, ethnic cleansing, and there have been series of intervention, pogroms, genocide, and all that, you won't expect the international community to fold its hands, because we are one and the same humanity. So if these reports are going endlessly and the government of the state responsible for it is being adamant to it, particularly if there are suggestions that it is complicit in these violations, then of course, what do you expect? Even if it is not complicit, but there are suggestions or evidence that state actors are involved, what else do you expect? So there have been series of interventions in Sudan, in Darfur, in the Darfur region. You remember how there were so much heinous violations of fundamental rights. The US and European Union intervened in North Korea and Syria for human rights violations, in Kosovo in 1999 to protect Albanians from Serbian forces. And NATO came in, and there were airstrikes all over the place in Yugoslavia, in Libya, in Tanzania. You remember the days of Idi Amin, that Tanzania had to come in. They invaded the country. That was how they raised the brutal dictator out of that place. So it's all over the place. It's not a new thing. It's not a breach of international law, but it has to do with the proportionality of the action, the necessity of the action, the severity of the violations. These are things that must be put into place. You don't just expect maybe that when a republic will invade Togo because one single man has been detained in detention, or maybe a couple of people have been killed. The severity, the dimension of the violations, and no matter how we try to deny it, whether from whatever perspective, or whether it is Muslims that are suffering the brunt, or Christians, or whoever is engineering it with it from a horizontal perspective or a vertical perspective, that it's not Muslims against Christians, it is Muslims, it is not Christians against Muslims, or whatever. What is important is that lives are being lost every day. The massive scale that shocks humanity, that is unacceptable to the essence of we as human beings.
Well, an interesting way to encapsulate this is you don't have human rights because you're Nigerian or African, but because you're human.
Yeah, it's attached to our body. It's part of our humanity. It's fundamental. It's basic. It's inalienable.
What would you say to those who say that there is hypocrisy from America, particularly because there have been crises, Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Gaza, and the country did not claim to respond in this manner? And they say that it's a display of hypocrisy.
Well, everything about state interventions has some elements of hypocrisy. We just talked about how Nigeria invaded or intervened in some ECOWAS countries.
Through the ECOMOG front.
Through the ECOMOG. America has its own problems with human rights violations.
Yeah.
The other day, a gentleman was sentenced to about 127 years imprisonment. He was 20 years into it when it was discovered that he was innocent. That was something last week. You see the massive violations of fundamental rights. We just got out of Guantanamo Bay. That's a violation of fundamental rights.
That was George Floyd as well.
Yes, George Floyd, exactly.
Which
you cannot separate state activism from a violation of fundamental rights. And so hypocrisy must be an element. But you look at it from the point of view, again, of the attitude of the government of Nigeria to these years of carnage, destruction of lives and property. Look at the plateau. The entire place is almost depopulated. Look at Benue State. You need to live within those bounds to understand the severity of the violations that's going on. And the awkward thing is that these attackers will come, displace members of the community from their homes, and take over the community and live there. And government does nothing. That's the crux of the matter, Sam. And you don't just do all that and get away with it. The government has not shown very serious response. It's been a passive approach to some of these things. The violence, there are blasphemy laws that tend to ignite some of these controversies. Before our very eyes, the governor of Taraba State at that time imposed Sharia, contrary to the provisions of the Constitution. We are a country that is bounded with secularity.
Yeah.
The secular norms are no longer in place. And now we have people enforcing Sharia in different parts in 12 states of the Federation, in a country that professes to secularism. So some of these things are ignited, and government was just there watching. We have a human rights commission that's supposed to stand up and say, look, these things cannot be because it breeds a lot of extremism. And they are there, they're not doing anything about it. You know, yes, the level of impunity has gotten to such heights that it is intolerable. So if you have to remain as one country and then expect that things happen, America is not just coming because Nigeria sneezed or coughed. It's coming because there are violations, actually. We have to accept that. Whether against Muslims or against Christians, whatever, it's against humanity.
It is a unilateral status that is troubling for a lot of people, at least to the extent of the objective conversations I've listened to. The unilateral status. If there were others besides the US, if it came as a United Nations front, then it would have maybe made sense to some people.
I understand, because interventions can also be a sort of neocolonialism.
Exactly.
And it undermines international law. It undermines state sovereignty. No interference doctrines. It creates potentials for abuse of power. You know, the thing is that some of these interventions, and we can reel out all the circumstances, they are informed more by economic or strategic interests, and may drive intervention rather than genuine humanitarian concerns. So there's need for a very careful and nuanced consideration.
Yeah.
What is Trump coming to Nigeria to do? Because one of the fears people have expressed is that, well, at the end of the day, there's no free lunch, even in Freetown.
Very true.
And probably he'll come and maybe we kiss our resources goodbye. Some people at the extreme end will say, whatever it is, but please let us have peace. Let us have less of the killings.
All right.
But then we have the interest also and right that our resources be left intact at the end of the day.
Well, our resources is one of the many reasons why we have bragging rights. It's important that you are part of this conversation. And the question for you is, I'd like you to listen to the question, because that's what I would expect you to respond to. What would you consider Nigeria's best response to Trump's threat? What would you consider Nigeria's best response to the threat by the United States President? 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003. WhatsApp is 080-903-06-416. Hector says, yes, it's true. Nigeria is a sovereign state, but I believe we have a super sovereignty. Does sovereignty oversee sovereignty? Hector is asking.
Yeah, there's equality in sovereignty, equality of states. It's a doctrine of international law that the states are equal. They have equal votes. But then at the United Nations, it sits on super powers. They have a Security Council, which membership
I
is,
think the quality is just on paper.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can clearly see the bias.
yes,
right?
but there's a quality of sovereignty.
It's brazen sometimes.
Yes.
All right. Clinton from Bori. Good evening, Clinton.
Yes, Sam Marco, good evening.
Good evening.
And good evening to your guest.
Good evening. Thank you.
Yeah, what I think that Nigeria government needs to do is to look for a way to have a sit-down, like maybe the, how do you call the ambassador, best ambassador in Nigeria, it must be called to have a sit-down with our service chief and also with the president, if need be. Yes, this problem have been prolonged for a very long time. Boko Haram is not today, for 10 years now. They have been fighting Boko Haram and they keep on spreading. We don't even know why they keep spreading. So if we are saying that the military should invade communities and start killing people, you will hear another story. So I think that this needs a holistic approach. We need dialogue. We need support, foreign support. If the president of US have decided to intervene, would have fine. And that will also justify that they are not part of the conspiracy, that they have not been sponsoring these people. Because I believe that the spread of this militias in Nigeria is sponsored. So if they are saying that they're not part of it and they want to support Nigeria to fight it to stand still, we will celebrate Donald Trump. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Temple calls from HA. Good evening, Temple. Please call back if you can. Emeka from Elele, good evening. It's Sam. Good evening.
Evening. It is a very big disappointment and shame to Nigerian government. We are a sovereign nation. Due to our lack of capacity to handle our own problem, it's not giving room to another president in another country to come and declare war. It's part of Muslim and coup. This is the coup that we are talking about now. Because we lack the political will. Hello?
We're listening.
We lack the political will to fight terrorism, to fight corruption. How can they be killing Christians? Boko Haram have been trending for 15 years. Boko Haram have been trending over close to 15 years. There's no solution. They have not used Boko Haram as a means of making money. There are some Qatar that is using Boko Haram now in terms of making money because they normally budget money and that is fighting Boko Haram.
All right, Emeka. You share on this platform what you can substantiate. Sam, Asiami's virus, terrorism, and Islamic fundamentalism have become malignant to Nigeria. At this point, many Nigerians would not mind if America would help invent the antidote for the cure. And that's from Dr. Ben. Well, that is the desperation I was speaking about earlier. Truly, as you've said, many Nigerians would not mind. Sovereignty or no sovereignty, power past power, and sovereignty supervises sovereignty. If you're a sovereign nation, stand up to it and protect your citizens. This is the key reason why governments exist. I welcome Trump with open hands. Whose sovereignty help when the sovereignty cannot protect me? Melody from Uniport says, good day, Sam. No matter the point anyone choose to show to justify Trump, Nigeria remains a sovereign state and has too big a status to have another country interfere in its affair, no matter who the president is. This is disrespectful from Trump, and we need to ignore him while doing our best to tackle our challenges. Why do Nigerians protect what happens in their homes and families, but when it comes to country, we treat it with no respect? Akbar says. Dakuku calls from HA. Good evening, Dakuku.
Hello. Good evening, Nigeria.
Good evening. Very quickly.
So let me contribute over Donald Trump's threat.
Go ahead, Dakuku.
For me. Hello.
We're listening. Please go ahead.
So for the intervention, let me come up and rescue Nigeria for the problem we are into the herdsmen and the Boko Haram, which is ravaging this country. That is why we are getting sort of fools, because people can no longer go to their farm. People cannot move much in northern area. Let him come and intervene. Somebody who says he's not coming, that person is joking. The people are finishing in this country. As I'm telling you, most of the northern part of Nigeria.
Okay.
Cannot access it again. Let Trump come up and intervene to rescue Nigeria.
All right, thank you, Dakuku. I'm going to repeat the question so you know what you're responding to. What would you consider Nigeria's best response to Trump's threat? Solomon from Ada George. Hello, Solomon. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Oracle.
Good evening.
Yes. For me, the best response to Nigerian government in this regard is that they should allow the American army to come in. Why do I say so? This issue has been lingering since 2001. I am from Plateau State. I know what is happening there. Right in my local government since 2001, this is what we have been facing. I can call names without ending. The people I grew up with, all of them have been killed. The two communities have stayed in Bakinla, the way I was born and brought up. Today, they are occupied by the Fulani people. The men in that community were more that until today, no arrest. This cleric that has been calling is from the same local government. It is because if you look at what he's doing, in all of those places, Fan, you will hear Fan, you will hear Hypan, you will hear Kui, you will hear all of those places. They are just within. We have a government. Government cannot come out and, look for those who are killing these people. Today, if I may travel to village, I'm always afraid. Sometimes I will just sit and be crying. My people are dying on a daily basis. I have a government that cannot take care of me, that cannot fight for me. Please allow the American army to come in. Let them help us. We need their help.
All right, thank you, Solomon, for sharing that.
That's a very touching.
That was touching,
It's from
yeah.
Plateau State.
Yeah,
You need to come from that part of the country to understand how horrible the experience is.
I mean, you can't, I literally could not say anything.
And
'cause
any solution is welcome.
the man was sharing his personal experience.
Yes,
You
even
can't
if
argue with that.
Even if it means we subjugate our sovereignty, but let the problem dissipate. You come and see whole families. My friend, a lawyer practicing in Lagos, returned home and met his house bare. His parents, his grandparents, children, everybody murdered in the recent carnage in Benue State. It's as bad as that.
Well, the redemption to this
Yes.
is, and I'm going to read what Trump said. He said he had asked the U.S. Defense Department to prepare for possible military action in Nigeria if, and that is conditional, the government continues to allow the killings. So that means it's up to the government.
No, the United States is not saying that Nigeria does not have the capacity. It believes that Nigeria has the capacity to rein in these terrorists, these herdsmen, these bandits. But it is very reluctant to do that. We've heard series of times in the days of Malami as Attorney General. We have the list of all the sponsors of Boko Haram. Had he made any efforts to bring them to justice? Some set of Nigerians were arrested in Dubai. I think that's United Arab Emirates some years ago. They made mention of some persons who sponsor Boko Haram. They submitted it to Nigeria. The Sahel states have a list of those responsible for this. Prominent people. They should be prominent because these will carry the most sophisticated arms. And they do their thing and get away. See people coming in their thousands in droves to a community. They finish